Hi, Steve.
Hey, Jim.
So are you in the mood for some cheap vinyl?
Cheap vinyl? Oh, wow.
Welcome once again to Two Guys Talking About Records, a vinyl community podcast. Each week, we two guys get together and we're talking about records. This week, a few different topics, but amongst them, cheap vinyl. We'll see. I'm very curious where Steve's going to sit on a couple of these releases that we'll talk about. My name's Jim, and I am a record store owner.
And I am Steve, a record collector.
How's your week going this so far? Well, it's the end of the week, I suppose. How's your weekend going into the new week looking for you out there?
Well, it'll be hot. It'll be hot again. It'll be sunny again. Sunny and hot. But it's that dry heat, Jim. It's that dry heat that says, well, it may be 100, but you're not going to sweat because it's a dry heat. I don't know where my sweat's coming from, but supposedly I'm not supposed to be really sweating.
Well, I think you're acclimating to the climate out there. How's that sound?
Yeah, I am. And I'm still pretty pale and pasty, but then again, I spend my day in the office. I was cleaning pools yesterday, though. I went out with my son and helped him. And that was kind of tiring.
I bet. You're retired, man. Come on.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the office again.
You're in the mid-Michigan area. We've got that mid-summertime sun where it's 80, 85 one day. And this morning, it was about in the mid-50s. The north wind.
Wow.
Refreshing is what we'll call that.
Yes, that is.
So, you know what? Here we are talking about weather. This isn't two guys talking about weather. So,
right, there's our next channel we're starting up, though. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be exciting.
Oh, yes, like paint drying, which is our third channel, by the way.
Yes.
This is the Vinyl Community Podcast. So we like to talk about pickups each week because those in the vinyl community, I think they like seeing what other people pick up. Is that your experience?
Well, kind of what I like to watch.
Yeah, I see that too. So what kind of goodies did you bring in this week, sir?
Well, there's more than this. The last few weeks have been very, very, very light. And now I had a couple things that were sent to me from a friend. His channel is Mad for Vinyl. His name's Mark. One of these you're going to recognize. Punk Floyd.
I saw that on your video today. Holy cow!
Yeah.
Well, what happened to? I don't need that.
Exactly. We had talked about it and go. I just don't know if I need it. Sounds interesting, but do I need it? And Mark didn't know that, and he saw this and goes, "That's what he wants." Some of these renditions are awesome. I mean, I just kind of get blown away. Yeah, like Skids, Dead Boys, Fear, Jaw Wobble, Eater, The Queers, the Members, Angry Samoans, The Vibrators, and Peter and the Test Tube Babies. It's fun. The version of Comfortably Numb from UK Subs blew me away. It was so good. And there is a lot of really good versions, and some are just, kind of fascinating. So yes, Punk Floyd.
I'm going to have to look that one up. It was a recent release. And I do remember that discussion. We like, do we want this? Do I want this? And it was not specific to Dark Side of the Moon. I think that was part of our discussion with how many dark sides, but it's across the board, Floyd.
It is, because they do a Bicycle, See Emily Play, Arnold Lane, the Nile Song, which I'm not even sure of, Comfortably Numb, Astronomy, Domain, Breathe, Pigs on the Wing, Eclipse, Hey You, Lucifer. Yeah.
Wow. Lucifer Sam all over the map on that one.
It is. It really is. It's really neat.
All right. I'll check it out too.
Yep. He also sent me a Fela Kuti. This is from 1981, and Anna Kala Cooper. Whatever. But it's it has Sufferhead basically is the main song on here, which was a big hit for Fela. And each side is one song on each side, over 20 minutes, because that's how he did it. Which is why he put out so many albums, because every album only had 2 songs, but they all went on for over 20 minutes. It's about the groove, the Fela Kuti groove. So, this was really nice to get. It was like a 1984 reissue. It originally came out in 1981. And I believe this is a U.S. reissue.
Cool.
Brand new. This just came in. Hermanos Guitales. And I've had an album from these. It's two brothers, brothers Gutierrez, and it's instrumental. It's kind of like some of that Western type sound. A little bit of a surf guitar, but not really. Just Western soundtrack type feel to it. It's really neat stuff. How these two brothers play, and you can just sit back and really enjoy it. I liked that first album I got from them, so I had this special ordered from Vinyl Me Please, and yeah,
cool. Using up that Vinyl Me Please account.
Yeah, yes. The thing, when you special order from them, you have to pay them first, and you just got to hope they're going to ship it. It isn't like, well, we'll charge you when we ship it. Nah. Give them money up front. There's some guys who bought box sets for the Grateful Dead. They've been waiting for like a year. They had to pay up front. Yeah. So good stuff. And I had this come in. This is the Soul Searchers. Soul Searchers is a 70s funk, and it is Go-Go, which was called. It was out of Washington, D.C. area. So just a different kind of funk on there. Go-Go was really big in D.C., and after that, I don't know if it went anywhere. But yay, D.C., hot stuff. So this was an interesting pickup. Again, something different and very vibrant blue.
Very nice.
Cool. We had then another funk group out of Chicago, the South Side Movement. And look at the size of that funk group. And what's really exciting is Plaid is back. Well, okay, Plaid was in. This was early 70s. And I've never seen so much Plaid in my life. Wow. Man, looks like you could have a picnic on them. Pretty incredible. Just fun funk.
Is that a Vinyl Me Please also I saw on the hype?
Yeah. The last two both were Vinyl Me Please, and that's in a poopy brown.
Plaid. They should have made it plaid.
Yeah, it should have been plaid. No kidding. Look at that. Final two I bought at a record store I was at up in the mountains. Lucifer's Friend. And I've always seen this thing, and just the whole title Lucifer's Friend kind of bugged me, and just the creepiness of that's a creepy album cover.
It
is.
I
don't know about this. So I bought that. The guy now I know I've seen a lot of people show this album and everything, and he goes, it's a European press. And so, okay, all right, because I know the European presses are more, but I don't know enough about it to look at it. Well, guess what? It was not a European press. It was an American press. So paid not an exorbitant amount of money, but for what it's worth, I paid more than I should have, I felt, on this. Kind of prog, I guess. That's... I really didn't have a huge clue where I was going with it. You used to see this in bargain bins all the time. It is no longer in bargain bins like so many albums, But I just remember going, there it is again. There it is again. Now you don't see it. You've had it before, though.
I believe I have. Yep.
Yep. And I passed on it because they go, well, I'm not a friend of Lucifer. Why should I buy that?
Should I do that?
And the final one I bought there also was a Jade Warrior. And again, more of a prog, which I am not very much a prog. I bought this solely because I knew it was a vertical label, and that's just being a sucker for that. And just, vertical label.
Those vertigos, really, people seek that out for whatever reason. They just the
reason why is once you have one, you watch it, it hypnotizes you to buy more.
Okay.
It's something they did with that. And you go, I must buy more vertical. I must buy more vertical.
Must find that Sabbath.
Yeah. And so you have to go out and buy it. So it was just something they did as a marketing ploy to then keep you buying for the rest of your life.
Liminal. There you go.
So what do you got, Jim?
Well, I thought you said you had a light week, and I had a light week. I mean, there's a few other things that we'll get to. I'm still kind of deciding on, but I am all over the map this week. How about a little bit of new wave brought in at a copy of The Waitresses? Wasn't Tomorrow Wonderful pop in? This is it's a very, I think it's just great. I mean, I've had this before in my collection, but I've never really kept it. This is from 1982, new wave pop rock, and of course, the big one is "I Know What Boys Like" off of this. But no Guilt is actually just kind of a really neat little tune as well, and it's always been kind of a fun one. You get that extra hi-hat ding in there, the No Guilt, but it's a fun record. And this one came in; it's in really nice shape, and I thought I'm a little lacking on the power pop, if you will, the new wave power pop stuff from the 80s. So I grabbed that. Then this one, we're going to have to revisit these at some point. This is a Dave Brubeck, and it's the outtakes. It's obviously a reissue from the Time Out sessions. So it's Time Outtakes. This one was, let me look at my little notes here, released rather in 2020. And it is essentially, the album that we're all familiar with, the Time Out from Brubeck, and these are the session takes from that. But it sounds really, really nice. And Time Out is one of my favorite jazz albums. And eventually, we're going to have to do a Jazz for Beginners episode at some point, because I'm really lacking. I'm really lacking on the jazz. I've got a few of the biggies and the stuff that I like. And then this came along and said, well, you know what? I really do enjoy the technical aspect of Brubeck's Time Out stuff. This one I do enjoy, and it's just a little bit different versions of what you're hearing on there. And, obviously sometimes you're a sucker for those outtakes, and sometimes they're not as good, but this one is.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very neat.
That's where I find sometimes you're like, oh, okay, well, I see why they went with the first one.
Yeah, you do. In this case, it's not actually the case, but it's pretty good. Then finally, in addition to the Michigan collection, a very, very localized one. I still have the shrink on this, but it is open. This is an artist named Michigander. I don't know if you remember hearing from him or seeing him in our store before. This is a 2023 release, and it's called "It Will Never Be the Same." Essentially, this is an EP, and I've been trying to nail down the location. Somebody told me once that this is local, but Michigander is actually a gentleman by the name of Jason Singer, and he is from Midland, Michigan, where we're located. So this is one of his. He puts out several little EPs. He's really kind of more of I want to say like a digital artist, but he does press some of his stuff on vinyl. This one's kind of on a neat little tan color. But very interesting side note to this is that Jason Singer, aka Michigander, went to high school with my daughter Katie. Here in Midland several years back. And somewhere buried on a hard drive, my old video days, I have got some video of him at a high school talent show that my daughter was in also. So I just have to kind of dig that up and find it.
Yeah. What kind of music is it?
It is going to be more modern pop stuff. Discogs calls it rock pop, but it's really kind of more of that very light, airy, dare I say, like Spotify pop. I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but it's fairly generic. How's that? But it's fun. It's light. It's great background music to have on there. It's not offensive in any way, shape, or form to the listening senses. It's just not high up on my list. And I brought this in, AK, just basically because the connection to Midland, but also it's a neat little addition to my Michigan collection. I do have some of his other stuff as well, and we've carried that in the store before. So when I see the vinyl, especially from local, I like to try to bring those in.
Yeah,
but fun stuff. It's just it'll be in the collection, and I'll bring it out once in a while, obviously. But it's very light poppy and synth oriented pop music. How's that?
Yeah. Yep.
But if you're curious, Steve, would you like to hear more?
Well, could you do a playlist with it?
You know what? We'll do that. I think each and every week we put together a playlist of all of the stuff that we talk about. It's a Spotify playlist, and if you have a Spotify account, or you can actually just listen in a web player if you need to as well. But sometimes if you click on that, sometimes it'll ask you to open up your Spotify application. But look for that playlist in the description. We put that on the Spotify description. There's a link to the Spotify playlist. I'm saying Spotify a lot, aren't I? But all the songs that, not all the songs, but all the music that we talk about, we'll have a couple of cuts from each of these records in that Spotify playlist. And so if you're curious what Michigander sounds like, and if I can find the Brubeck outtakes and the Fela Kuti stuff that you've got, if it's in there, we'll put that on the playlist so you folks can check it out. And on the YouTube side, it is in the description. And we also put up a separate link as kind of a preview sometimes on our Facebook page. Just search for Two Guys Talking About Records on Facebook. And so we'll do that. So today, Steve, I said cheap vinyl is kind of a teaser. We're going to do that first, but as a teaser to the teaser, I had a couple of things come into the store, and I thought that this might make kind of a good opportunity to give a demonstration on Discogs and how to enter things into Discogs. Not necessarily, we've talked about this in previous episodes. There's different levels of use that you can get out of the Discogs. I don't use the app personally. I use the desktop version, the regular laptop version of that, the computer one. I find that works better. But today, I think that we are going to do a couple of real-time, one of them you'll understand here, real-time entries into entering something into Discogs, and we'll see how quickly I can get that done.
Well, that'd be great because, if I get an album and it's not in Discogs, I just sit aside and wait for someone else to eventually put that in for me.
I find it. Obviously, that happens a lot with new stuff, but so hang on. Stay tuned. After we have a brief discussion on cheap vinyl, we'll get into entering a couple of things into Discogs. But first, the trend for vinyl lately, Steve, I'm a little bit of a loss because for a while, and again, we've talked about this many times on our podcast, that the price of vinyl is going up. And I know you've mentioned it on your channel as well. And it just seemed as if the cost of new releases, especially double albums, were reaching past that $40 mark and encroaching on $50. And that's still the case for a lot of things. And I know that that's been a kind of a sticking point for you, is that they're driving people away.
Yeah, we only, isn't like we're going to go to work and get a raise so we can buy more vinyl records. So if it starts going up, well, something has to give. I mean, are you going to have less gas? Are you going to eat less? Or are you just going to buy less vinyl? And I mean, that has to give. Now, there's people with a lot of income, and that's great. They can buy that. They can enjoy that. All that audiophile stuff, they can. Myself, I've had to look and just say, okay, do I really need that? Do I want to pay that much? And for the most part, I shy away from some of that because it's this whole 2-album thing's been popular. Of course, now we can make it colored. Hey, maybe we can get a few more bucks for that. And I get prices can go up, but prices can also go down. We just haven't seen much of that aspect of what we call economics.
Until now, that is. So last year, and most of these, I thought, I got to admit that I'm not completely up on the whole ownership umbrella of some of the sub-labels, but I believe that WEA, Warner Brothers, essentially Warner Music, the WMG Warner Music Group, is at the head end of a lot of these sub-labels. And the absolute opposite end, we lamented about, the Dark Side that came out on that picture disc. They took Dark Side of the Moon, which was very comfortably associated with a single LP, and it worked as a single LP for 50 freaking years. And then they split it up just to accommodate this very cool looking picture disc technology onto a double LP. And then, of course, they charged $55 for that new. Again, to your point, that's kind of driving that price up, and up, that make people have to make decisions. Now, for collectors, there's the conundrum. Do we need that $55 Dark Side in our collection? Sadly, I think both of us did. Apparently.
There you have it.
But for the general music lover, and as the record store owner side of me, I want people to be comfortable with the buying experience. And if there's folks coming in, they're younger, they're just starting off in life, they're their first job, they're coming out of college, for example, they don't have that disposable income. that kind of price on that kind of album is going to scare them off. But what brings them in is cheap vinyl. And usually that's the used case. But now Warner and some of these other sub labels beginning last year have, I think what it is that they've got such a rich catalog that they can begin repackaging some of these things. And oddly enough, this was another discussion of ours about greatest hits albums.
Yeah.
So what we are now seeing in this trend is the new compilations of greatest hits albums under this series being called Now Playing. And these are made on the cheap because we'll show a couple of them here in a second. But all of the album covers are essentially a template. And so they're saving money on design in that case. Sure. They all have this little Now Playing tab on the side, and then they have a picture of the artist. And what they do is they just slop together some of the greatest hits from these artists and put them out at a price point that I think is hard to, it's hard to say it's not a good deal.
Yeah. And here's, so you go, wow, look what record companies are doing. They make a ton of money off these because it's in their catalog. They may own a bunch of that. They probably do own rights to a lot of that. So yeah, let's keep the packaging cheap. Let's do all this. The gross margin, when I worked in retail and CDs began doing this, Artists of the 20th Century, I think, was a series that came out. Do you remember that, Jim? It's kind of a grayish type label. And it was generic. It was all the same with these greatest hits. Super cheap CDs, but the margin you made off that, again, working in retail was pretty phenomenal because it wasn't costing them much to do this. Still, it was inexpensive and people could get an artist and have the hits.
And to your point, saving that money and owning these rights and having very cheap production capabilities for this has led to this new Now Playing series. Let's show off a couple of these. And what I've got here, Steve, is our one of our distributors, and I can show some of this. We're looking at our pages here, and I'll work my way backwards. This Now Playing series started back in, late last summer. And they put some of these out. You see a Rat and a Dokken, for example, were some of the first ones. And they come in at this price point of a suggested retail price of $19.98. So $20 a piece for these things. Some of them are colored vinyl even. They'll put that on there, which means that they can make this stuff a little cheaply. Now, the first concern I'd always have with something that is that cheap is what is the sound quality? And I've sold dozens of these things, most notably the Gordon Lightfoot one, multiple copies of it, no complaints whatsoever, folks. I mean, obviously, I don't believe they're going to be audiophile. They're not going to be audiophile, but at that same token, they're not going to be that KTEL sound or something like that, where they just cram too much in there. And the technology going into it, I think, is better. So these are the ones that have been out since August of last year. And I'm kind of going backwards through. We get a Dokken. But it's not just rock. You get into a Notorious B.I.G. and an En Vogue in here. But then you go back into the Spinners. Then you get some rock with Montrose and a Todd Rundgren in here, Bread. And there's the Gordon Lightfoot Now Playing, again, in that $20 mark. What's interesting, too, about the Gordon Lightfoot, Steve, is that this is a compilation that does feature the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And Gord's Gold, a lot of his stuff, there was one that did feature it later, but a lot of the earlier compilations from Lightfoot did not have the Fitzgerald on there. This one does.
Yeah. It was before 75. Yeah.
Yep. Which was making that work. But then you get groups like America, Judy Collins in here, Eddie Rabbit, Foghat, groups where you can just toss together. They've got a good staple of hits going where you can make a full record and call that good. Seals and Croft, Zapp and Roger, the Curtis Mayfield, Ray Charles, Wilson Pickett. But then we get into some, and this is, as we get a little closer to these, Steve, I want your genuine opinion on where we're going with a couple of these, because I saw some in the upcoming releases, I believe for July, maybe a little bit further into August or September on some of these things coming up, that we're getting away from these groups like America, Casey and the Sunshine Band and Sister Sledge. First up, what I see here for next week is this one called Now Playing Summer Sounds, rather. So you look at this, and you can kind of see that Now Playing template on the side there. And this one is on colored vinyl. again at that $20 mark. But then we get into their idea of summer sounds. We're really kind of going K-Tel here. We see England Dan and John Ford Coley, Orleans Lobo, Leo Sayer, Firefall, Nicolette Larson, Andrew Gold, Joey Scarberry, the Believe It or Not, which is the theme from The Greatest American Hero, and other stuff on there as well. Are those summer songs?
I guess they're kind of happy, carefree type songs. It reminds you think back to the inexpensive compilation CDs that I had hundreds and hundreds of them, and you're looking for that has that one song I really like. I'll just buy the whole thing. and so you get, and I did that for CDs all the time, and to me, that's what's happening again. Okay, so these groups, well, we really can't make a greatest hits album. Let's toss them onto a compilation. And yeah, I got to call it summer because it's summertime, so we got to get you to kind of buy that. Now, come fall, you'll get your own fall one.
We'll get a different one in there, I bet too. But yeah, that's an interesting point. Some of these artists, like Joey Scarberry, you can't put The Greatest American Hero on a greatest hits album with his other stuff because that's it. That's pretty much. But so that's an interesting departure for the Now Playing series, is to go into these compilations of various artists. But here we get into, now all of a sudden we're getting Van Morrison due next week, George Benson, Lupe Fiasco. But here's where I want, and this, I don't know, Steve, how this is going to sit with you, but let's just dive right in and see here. Al Stewart, not him. Utopia, not him. Sonny and Cher, expected. Hall & Oates, expected. But as we get into August, love the Stooges. There's a Now Playing Stooges coming up in August, along with Captain Beefheart and the Velvet Underground.
Okay. Well, I guess my thought here is for that person that's just getting into vinyl, and I don't know anything about this. Of course, I think isn't it called Spotify? You said that you can
Spotify, this thing you may have heard of.
Yeah. Amazon, they have a music thing that you can really check this out. But for those, to me, okay, everyone talks about Beefheart. I'll just buy this inexpensive thing, and if I don't like it, I don't feel like I just got screwed out of a lot of money.
Yeah, well, if you're going to be familiar with Beefheart. But I mean, to see early Stooges. Now, the thing that's really concerning is we're still a couple of months out. So my descriptions show nothing. There's no track list. You have no idea. And I did try to look around for some info on that, and I wasn't able to find anything. As we get closer, I think that they will attempt to give us some more information on that. But as of now, there's no track listing available. I'd be very curious. There's two versions of the Velvet too. They're going to put one out on a clear vinyl of that as well. But yeah, there's no indication. You get a nice little early picture of the Velvet Underground on there, but no indication as far as what the track list is going to be.
Well, and the thing, you look at, okay, so Beefheart, the Stooges, Velvet, did they have any hits? Theoretically, they did not. Okay, so you can kind of go in and just start picking, and well, this was popular. What you could put whatever on there. Now, the Stooges doesn't have "I Want to Be Your Dog." It's not worth it to me at all. But maybe this would help get someone. They're listening to it again. I'm new to music, and I'm trying to buy this and go, wow, I'm really kind of liking this. I want to go and dig into more. It's like a gateway drug. So there you go. Here's your pill. See what happens now. Maybe you have a bad experience with it, or maybe you will be totally hooked into it.
The other thing too to think about, you take a Beefheart, and especially with the Velvet Underground, and in some cases some of the early Stooges, to get into the vintage side of those is a little more expensive. I mean, you've got some Velvet Underground albums that will skyrocket into the triple digits, and there's a couple of Stooges albums, and Beefheart inexplicably the same thing. As well.
Even reissues. You look at 80 reissue, the 80s Velvet's reissued, their whole catalog, and those have even jumped in price. Besides, where I got introduced to them by buying these 80s reissues when they first came out. They're not cheap.
So this definitely bears watching. I think I applaud the recording industry, and if Warner's at the top of this pyramid, I do applaud them for not abandoning the people with less disposable income and say, well, you know what? So So what? You can't afford $50 for a record, whatever. Go buy some used stuff there, kiddo.
Mhm.
But I mean, I applaud them for attempting to make this, especially in the economy these days, is making something a little bit more affordable. And again, if that gets more people into it, that's great.
Yeah. And I would say most collectors will not buy that because generic cover, stuff like that. I just, yeah, if I want an America Greatest Hits, I'll probably go to the used bins and find one from there with the original artwork. But if you're coming in, here's a brand new, it's new vinyl. It'll be clean. It'll be nice sounding, supposedly. And yeah, I have this, and I have the songs that I've heard on the radio or that I know from a movie or something. You'll be perfectly happy, and that's great. Just what the CDs had done when CD prices were beginning to skyrocket. Let's bring in the budget stuff, and the accountants go, "Yeah, this is a great idea."
Especially if their overhead on it is low.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and you can bet it is. Yeah,
how many copies? You want one of each of the Velvet Underground?
yeah. No.
You think you're covered?
I should be well covered with that.
Right.
That and the Stooges,
Okay.
yeah.
We will keep an eye on that, and we'll see how they say. I can let you know in August how well those sell and whether or not folks want to get in on them. So
Yeah.
we'll keep an eye. All right. Well, one of the other things I wanted to talk about today, Steve, and you and I have had this discussion as well, and you mentioned earlier too, about Discogs and whether or not when you get something, especially with new releases, a lot of times those are not in the database. So what do you do, sir?
Well, what I do is, and I've bought stuff that's is like, really complicated to find. Jim sends me a link on which of the album I bought, and then I hit that link, and then I got it. So that's how I take care of it.
You go in that direction. So, but there are in some instances older versions of albums that are not in Discogs as well, and that's always been kind of exciting to me too, because Discogs has been around now for many, many years. And the database, as we talked about, has grown exponentially with millions and millions of releases added. And again, it's a user-driven database. So people put stuff in there. And I am a fairly, when I have time, fairly active contributor to the database. And I put stuff in if it's not there. So there's a couple of things I wanted to cover, if I could, today with you, and just show you what to do if you're just entering in something new, a vintage piece. You could do this with new as well, but you got to be kind of careful with that. But a vintage piece that doesn't exist. And then I thought I'd see if you would time me. We'll go real time for one of the most difficult things to enter into yours. It exists in there somewhere, but finding the correct copy is difficult. So we'll get to that here in a couple of seconds. So the other day I had an album, and let me go back to our other view here. Come into the store, and this one's probably going to end up in the personal collection by the Dictators. You know these guys, right?
Yep.
Just what'd you call them? Garage punk, or just
yeah,
hard? They're rock. A little bit of punk.
Yeah, they started as punk. They're considered that, but it's more rock. I would have to agree. Rock and roll.
Rock and roll. So this one came in, and I went to Go Catalog. It's got a little promo sticker on there as well. And even better for my collecting purposes is it is a promotional copy. It's not, oddly enough, a white label promo, but it is a promo label. You can't really see it on there, but it says promotional copy, not for sale. So I went to Go Catalog this because, as we do for everything in the store, we enter it into the Discogs, and I use that as our inventory list. Then I found out that this didn't exist in there. So I thought, okay, well, we have to create a new entry. So if you would kind of bear with me, let's go ahead and look at this, Steve, and you tell me what you think here.
All right.
So just starting off on the Discogs page, and I'll just go through my process for this so you folks can kind of look. And Steve, if you have any questions, just let me know here. I'll start off just by typing in the album title, if you will. Manifest Destiny. And I'll go to the all versions. And so you start really at the top layer. Now, for those of you who are brand new to Discogs, this is what's called a master release. And so you normally, when you want to add something to your collection, whether you're adding it new or just adding an existing, you start on this at least to see if it exists. So this one's an easy one, relatively speaking. I see that there are 29 versions of Manifest Destiny. So I can narrow this down. I could go to promo if I wanted to, but let's just start with vinyl. We'll knock it down to 23. And that knocks that down 23 of 29. Then the US takes us down to 9. And if I had a non-promo version, I would go here. But since I have a promo version, I could do this as well. So let's get rid of vinyl. And the reason I don't like to do this is because sometimes you will get cassettes or CD promos and newer stuff. So this knocks it down to 2 versions in the United States of Manifest Destiny. So I can click on the quick preview here of this one and see that it matches mine with the promo sticker. But when I look at this, it does not match my label at all. This has got, I mean, this is a white label promo. I can't show mine at the same time, but mine has the Asylum Cloud logo on it.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, let's go to this one. This one is a different one as well. It does not have the cloud logo. So end result being this one does not exist in the database. I'm fairly confident that it does not exist in the database. So here is my process for when that happens. I'll go into one of these. Now, again, I'll ask that if you are brand new to this, do some reading through the Discogs rules and regs on how to do these to get it right. I'm just going to show you how the very quick version. But what I'll do is I'll go into a promo version here, and then I hit edit release. Now, again, there are some Discogs purists out there who will tell you not to mess with these unless you absolutely know what you're doing. To some extent, I'll agree with that. Because what I'm doing now is I'm in the board and the page rather that allows me to edit this release. But I don't want to edit this release. I want to make a new one. So I'm going to copy this to draft. Are you sure you want to copy it to draft? I say, okay. And then it takes me to my draft page. There's nothing here, but here's the Dictator's Manifest Destiny. So I'm editing essentially a copy of that first one that I looked at.
Okay,
now I went ahead and
easier. You don't have to put in sit there and key in a bunch of stuff.
You do not. This makes it a little easier. It puts all of this stuff in, but I'm actually going to get rid of some of this as we go through. But one of the first things I'm greeted with is adding the images, because that's kind of important too, especially if you're trying to differentiate. Now I went ahead and I pre-did the images for this because then it would be doing this. So I wouldn't have to, you didn't want to sit and watch me edit images for 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead. And there are some specifications for images. You can see them right there. They got to be a JPEG, no larger than 4. So we'll put them in, hopefully that they went in order, and you can see them all just kind of loading and uploading here. So I'll just make sure that they're in order. So I've got the front cover, the back cover, side 1, side 2 labels, and then the inner sleeve on each of those. From there, I can just kind of scroll down. I want the title. The label code is exactly the same. The type and phone. I can get rid of these. I'll let somebody else toss them back in if they decide to. But I'm not absolutely positive that those are the same. So here we get to the barcodes and identifiers. So I'm going to add in a new barcode or identifier. There is no barcode on this. So I will change this to the label code. And in this case, the label code on mine comes to a 7E -1109, and then there is a PRC on the label. That is the pressing plant that it went to. So I'm just going to call that good. Later on, I'll probably go in and add the runouts on there as well. But everything else should be the same on here. It's an LP, it's an album, it is a promotional, and I can tack that in there as well. Released in the United States in 1977. That's all good still. The track listings are already there because I copied from draft. I can probably go ahead and leave the producers and the written by. All that stuff is in there as well. Then I get down to, they call it punk. I can add rock, but I'm not going to change it from there. So here in the notes, I'm going to write promotional copy, not for sale, because that's representative of what's on the logo, or on the label rather. And then submission notes, I have to add in something. You have to put something in there. Adding promo version to, oops, if I can spell right, to the database. And you can add it to your collection, which I will eventually here too. But then you preview it. And if you have any errors, it's going to tell you when you go to preview this. So this is what you're seeing beforehand. I can go in and look and see my photos, and you can see that it's got the Sky label on the Asylum, but still says promotional. So we're all good there. And it gives me a warning saying that these are possible duplicates. And you can actually go and click in on these. You can't see it on that screen, but it shows that these are the duplicates opening up. I'm actually good, so I'll check that box to say that it is not those duplicate releases.
Sure.
And gives you all of this. I agree. I submit. And voila, it is in the database.
Yeah.
And it's good to go. Now, I'll go through a little bit later and I'll add it to the master release. I won't do that now, but that is now part of the database, and I can add that to my collection and go from there.
You talked about that run out groove, and that does become really important when you're really trying to find out what version, because you could have, different. I mean, each pressing plant obviously was different, but at times, you'll have even that, and those pressing plants will have different run out grooves going on, and it gets so confusing. But to find the right one, you really got to dig, and that can take, it takes forever.
It does, and there's ways to add that in under the label code. I would add this in here as well, but instead of a barcode, I can add the matrix run out. And so I'll just do that. We talked about that. I'm editing that now. So you can't see this, but I am looking at this, and it is the label code, the 7E-1109.
So you could tell Jim's younger because he was able to actually look at that and see that run out code on there. Me, kind of lifting up the glasses. What is it? Trying to put it in a certain light. And look at you. You just go boom, 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 boom. Wow.
A-71-1. There's an RE in the run out code. And then importantly, and this will help with the identification, is the -PRC.
Yeah.
So when somebody goes to search, then that'll be in there. And I'll add the other one later, but I'll go through, and then you just go to preview submit again, and it adds that change in. Oops. And I didn't add the note. You see, it's telling me no. Added run out code, preview submit. And then I get the duplicates, and I agree, submit, and it made those changes, and it goes right back. And so now you can see that the run out code is on there.
Okay.
So that's how you do it. Does that make sense? As to go through? I mean, it's a very quick thing to do. And again, there are some users on Discogs who are so particular that sometimes they'll rip you a new one if you get one little thing wrong. And I'm just, okay, you have to learn to take that as you will.
Well, my worry would be, how do you have time? Is your life really that boring that you just sit there and look at that? I mean, yeah, you need maybe another hobby. Yeah.
For me, at least, it's about making sure that we've got the right copy on our shelves. We're identifying them. And there's a little part of me from my collection. I want to make sure that I've got the one that I say I've got. Down the line, it could be worth a little bit more, could be worth a little bit less. But the one that we just put in there now, when I add that to my collection, I'll have the distinction of knowing that I am the only person so far in Discogs to have that version of that album.
And you can put it, if you decide to sell, you can go for $200, but you got the only one. And so here it is. Yes.
So now let's move on. And you want to try and time me in real time on this or not, Steve?
I can.
This is an album that gives users headaches. If you're just looking to enter this into your Discogs collection. Now, and it's Police Synchronicity. And it is a tough one because officially, I think there's like 39 or so different variations of this. Please. But Goldmine did an article finding that there was up to 90 some different versions of this in there.
I just know is I have one, and I decided I'm not even going to bother entering it in because I was just too lazy to figure it out and to look at all the little pictures and all the color, and oh my God, it's not worth enough.
I found a video on YouTube of a guy who has collected all of these, of the variations.
Oh man.
You want to talk about somebody with some time on their hands, some disposable.
Yeah.
So are you up for this? And we're looking at our time on the podcast.
That.
So I am going to go ahead And let's try to do this in real time. And hopefully, dear viewers, you don't get too bored with this, but we'll just start typing in police. Did I share that? I did not share that. Let me add that to the stage here.
Time's clicking. So, I mean,
oh, man,
you got to roll, baby.
So police synchronicity. I'll go to all versions. You can see I've got a couple in there as well. All right. So here's where the fun begins. They even tell you right here, there are 36 variations, but each of those 36 have different arrangements of the color stripes showing different photographs of the band members. Now, if you look at this and you're trying to catalog it, the most simple way is to go by the color on the front cover. So this is yellow, blue, red. So typically speaking, this would be referred to as a YBR. But I'm going to attempt to search using the runouts first. So right now we're looking at Discogs. And if you see here, Steve, it says 495 versions.
Yep.
I'm going to knock that down to vinyl, which takes us down to 252 versions. This I'm comfortable is a United States pressing. So that takes us now from 495 just to a measly 140 versions in through there. Now, my personal one, I've got a UK copy, so that made that a little bit easier.
Yeah.
All right, so here's where the fun begins. I know I'm burning time here. I'm going to look at the runouts, if you can kind of see on the side here. And this is an RCA pressing from the RCA pressing plant. And it's an RL with Robert Ludwig. So we'll try that.
Ooh.
We'll do an RCA and then RL in the free space. And hit return and add that in. That knocks it down to 39. So at this point, I would begin looking for that yellow, blue, red. And you're scrolling through 39 to see if the photos match. And I'm not seeing, here's a yellow, blue, red right here, but the images are not the same. You can't quite see it on this, but the images are not the same. So that is not the right copy. So now I missed that yellow, blue, red because that went back to the top. So
that guy found all of these. That's just crazy.
Yep. So there's the yellow, blue, red that we looked at. There's another. So I'm not seeing it. Now, this is where I'm at the end of the trail here, and this is not. That starts with the Andy Summers up top, where this one that I've got is the Sting up top. Let me just show you real quick here. That's the Sting up top.
Yeah.
Versus the Andy Summers. So again, it's the yellow, blue, red, but not the right configuration of pictures. Now, this actually, Steve, gives me a little bit of an excuse to say that sometimes because these are user submitted, that something's not right, because that RCA 6 and the Robert Ludwig did not show up in here. So having reached the dead end there, I'm going to go back to the YBR. And we'll just type in yellow, blue, red, the YBR, and see where that gets us. That gets me down, holy cow, just to 46. So I'm still kind of looking at 46 versions of it. And not all of them are going to be YBR because it's trying to read the back cover as a yellow.
Yeah, most of them look blue to me from here.
They do. So let's look at some of these. That's not the right one.
I think there's now 40 variants. You just brought it from 39 to 40.
Yep, and I can tell, you may not be able to see, but I can tell from that little picture that's not the right one there. Yeah. That's not the right one. I'm looking for the Sting with the lettering up top, which could be this. So I'm looking here. It's got Sting and then Stuart Copeland and then Andy Summers with the phone. I'll look at the back side of that, and that is correct. It goes Andy Summers. No. The back is incorrect.
See, darn it. Going back to 40. And I just would have went with the front and go, that's good enough for me.
You would have stopped and said, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's the one we looked at. That's the one that I've got in my collection here. That's not the right one. That's not the right one. Wow, I'm running up short of time here, Steve. I made a
more yellows there than when you did that other sort.
There is, yes.
Huh.
No, I think that was the right one. Let me see if that matches the run out. How's that sound here? With the purple translucent. So I'm actually going to go, and I lost it. I hate when that happens. We'll scroll back down here. There's one there with the yellow, blue, red, but that's not the right one because Sting is crooked.
Oh.
So we're actually going to go into this one and look at the translucent purple. So that's another thing too, is if you can look at this translucent, this is a purple translucent record. You cannot see it on there. It looks black, but when you hold it up to light,
sure does.
It is. And here is where part of the issue is because this is the correct one. I'm confident of that, but there has been no run out information added to it. So I think we're good there.
Even if the back was different?
The back was different. So I mean, it's maybe a new entry. Doggone it.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to call time because I have not found this one. I apologize, Steve. I failed you.
No, you found the 40th one. I mean, there's more than 2 of these. I don't know. Wow.
You can tell, and I was fairly confident. Like I said, I was fairly confident that that was the right one. Where did it go again here? This is just a little too ridiculous.
On my iPad, when I do that, if I hit something, it changes it like to a pink color, so I know I've looked at that one.
It does normally, except for the fact that I'm not following the links proper. I'm just looking at the preview.
Okay.
I'm looking at the preview picture instead of the link proper. So let's see here. Release 120. All right. So what I would do in this case then is I would copy this release and add a new one in, and then hope that the Discogs police don't take me down.
Wow. Man.
So, okay. Well, that didn't work, but 6 minutes, 7 minutes.
Well, it could have been worse. You could have been trying to put in a Dark Side of the Moon or a Beatles White Album.
There is 7 minutes of your life you're never going to get back, Steve.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So, but now, again, if this were going into my collection, I think that I would actually add that very specific one in. And I probably will before I put it out in the store, add it in, because chances are somebody that buys it is going to be that retentive that they want to make sure that they've got the correct copy.
Yeah.
But yeah, going the route with the run out, it said RCA 6 on there in the RCA plant, RCA 4 came up nothing as well. So that one doesn't exist.
Now I wonder how many others are kind of, you think that it's been put in there and they didn't look at the backside too. This is just nuts. I mean, you need to get a hold of the guy that has collected all of these and find out, listen, bud, I might have one you don't have, and see if he'll pay a couple $100 for it, because obviously he wants that.
You need to make sure if he was basing that on Discogs, but man, that you want to talk about a rabbit hole of collecting. This is one of those ones that would be a nightmare.
Friends come over. What should we listen to? Well, I only have one album. I got several hundred copies of that album though, so just pick one. We'll play it.
So again, Discogs, it shows just the strength of that database, but also some of the weaknesses as well, because if something is entered in incorrectly by somebody who just didn't go all the way through the runouts or didn't put the right picture up, you're lost.
It does.
Okay. Well, what do you think? I think that's a good thing to end on my failure to find the right police synchronicity.
You're so confident going in, though. So
I knew we could do it.
There we go. And then we could just have it destroyed on camera. I think that makes this whole segment worthwhile. Just the little destruction of that.
Afterwards, I'm going to call up my friend AI Steve Carlson to cut some new audio and say, "Good job, Jim. You found the right one." Yeah. And I'll go, "Yay." So, all right, Steve, that will do it for this week's episode of Two Guys Talking About Records. I'm a failure on this part, but make sure you check out our Facebook page, Two Guys Talking About Records. Search for that. Look for the playlist of the stuff we talked about. I'm going to put up 300 and some odd different versions of Synchronicity on the playlist this week for each one that we did. So until next week, my name is Jim, and I'm a record store owner, and I thought that I was pretty good at Discogs, but
And I'm Steve, a record collector, and I know I'm pretty lazy with some of that on Discogs. So everything is entered here except police synchronicity.
There we go. All right. Well, you have a great week, Steve. As always, great talking to you. Thanks.
Yeah, you too, Jim. Bye, everyone.